you looking for healthier, fuller hair? Do you want extra money for bills, trips, extracurricular activities for your kids, or do you want to replace your entire income? Monat is the answer. Our products are Leaping Bunny certified, vegan, and Monat can be used by anyone, including your kids and pets. Message me on my Instagram to partner with me. Founder shares are available, and as a market partner, you have access to uncapped bonuses, 45% commission, 35 to 55% off discounts, on top of all-inclusive paid trips. Right now, I also have a free gift for anyone that partners with me, so don't miss out. You can message me on my Instagram at LizChilvers87.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you,
good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters, the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend. And it's good evening to Steve, George, and Joe and Mitch. And big thank you again to everybody who came along last weekend to the end of season due. We raised just short of £1,100 for Dementia Matters. All the money has been paid over to them. So fantastic effort by everybody who came to the event and those people who were in the chat this week who donated handsomely to get us over the £1,000 mark. So fantastic stuff. I'm waiting for some of the money to come in from Woucher, but I've just paid the money over myself because I know what's coming now. So great stuff. That will make a big difference. And as I've mentioned already on the live shows this week, well done to Melly from Melly's Carpet too. When I asked him if he would jump in and sort out some carpets for them, he was only too happy to oblige. So I think they've been measured up and they're busy sorting them out. So that's great news. So hopefully that £1,000 and odd pound can be donated to something else and they can help do something else. And those of you who are fans of the Long Sands, keep your eyes peeled. Something special is going to come with regards to Dementia Matters and the Long Sands in due course. Last weekend as well, it was great to meet so many people, some for the first time, some for the 15th, 16th time, but it was nice to meet so many different people who follow us, watch us, and who very kindly say that we've made a difference to over the course of the last 4 years. Always humbling when you see somebody. We've all had it, bumped into people at the match, bumped into people in the street, and they've often said we've made a big difference. We've got them through some hard times, and I always appreciate that. I am truly humbled by it. And I was humbled by a group of people who I met who were relatives of Ronnie Middleton. Who was Ronnie Middleton? People are asking. Well, there he is in the programme. Wonderful picture of Ronnie. He worked at the club for many, many years. And there you go. I mean, there's a quote from him. The players mix more with the public these days. You have to see it to believe just how patient they are with the fans. And you couldn't begin to count how many autographs they signed. Lovely interview with Ronnie, who, as I say, used to work up there at the training ground. There he is, decked out, speaking to a very young-looking Warren Barton. Working down at the players' kitchen. Great memories for the family. We had a good look at this, and there he is. standing next to Derek Wright in the back row of the infamous Entertainers photographs, which was brilliant. And this is a proud moment for all the family when he presented with a signed shirt. And there's Rob Lee, Terry Mack, Kenny Dalglish, and of course, Alan Shearer with Ronnie in the middle. So great stuff, great memories. That's what it's all about, getting along and sharing memories. And I did promise them I would show them tonight. Say that Ronnie Middleton never forgotten. So well done. Thank you very much for showing us that and sharing it. Okay, so where do we go tonight? Well, I'm going to be happy and positive and cheery, and I might read something out in a positive manner so that I don't get accused of being negative. You know, we've got so much we could talk about, but we like to mix a bit of humour with serious stuff on here, as you know. Plenty to come forward. This was doing the rounds in our WhatsApp group today, and I think we could talk about this, Steve Hasty, to start with. And this is our Newcastle United structure going into this month, July 2024, after the departure of Amanda and Mirdad. This is how we look at the football club. So top of the tree, Steve, Yasser Al-Rumayyan. Yep. Just underneath him, Jamie Rubin. I can pronounce his name all right. After that, Abdul Majid, perhaps, and Asmar. So I'll leave the rest of those pronunciations to you, more experts in the Middle East. Darren Eales, of course, and then below him, Brad Miller, Simon Kappa, Peter Silverstone, and Paul Mitchell, newly appointed, of course. Then Eddie Howe and James Bunce. Underneath those two guys, we've got Dan Hodges, Jason Tyndall, Graham Jones, Steve Nixon, and then below them, Stephen Purchase, Simon Weatherston, Adam Bartlett, Andy Howe, and then Shwan Jalal underneath their goalkeeping coach as well. So that's how we're shaping up. More changes as well, Steve, with another departure under 21s level. With you know, another vacancy coming up for grabs. This is a huge summer for changes. But is that the kind of lineup that's going to, off the pitch, you know, deliver, Steve? Do you think is it starting to have a bit more of a different look and a different feel now?
I think it's a lineup that has to deliver, actually, Steve. When you look at it, you know that some of those guys have only been here a matter of weeks. Some of them a couple of months. But at the top there, obviously, you've got Yasser, and he's got his two representatives from PIF sitting alongside Jamie. But I think that it's exciting time for the football club. We know that. We've all, considering we went from a linear of one in charge running this football club only 3.5 years ago. You know, we had a CEO who was also looking after the finance, who was making the tea. I don't think he selected the players, but he did everything else. And we've gradually built something. It's basically a nice professional setup that we've got now. We've got people in situ who now need to earn their corn. They've got, some of them will come with reputations. Some we didn't have a clue who they were. But in all instances now, they're answerable up the chain of command through Darren Eales, who, let's face it, is running the day-to-day aspect of the football club as the CEO. So the book kind of stops with him in terms of a boardroom or in terms of a management structure. But then you've got the executive board sitting above with Yasser at the top as a chairman, who's basically a de facto absentee, I suppose you could call him. He's there as the main man of PIF, the people who hold the purse strings. But it's that middle band that interests me. Brad, Simon, Silverstone, and Mitchell, with Eddie and Bunce alongside him. I mean, obviously, Mitchell's looking after that sort of the part that interests us the most, the part that really should be the area that Newcastle fans are concentrating on, that little corner, that little sweep down the right-hand side. We'll forget about the left-hand side of the pitch for now. We've got the right-hand side to concentrate on. Mitchell, Bunce, and Eddie Howe. They're the people who are going to drive the football side of the club forward. They're the people who are responsible for match days, They're people who are responsible for the basically the setup, the signings, who comes in, who leaves. The people under that, obviously, there you can see you've got Jones and Tyndall. Well, we all know Jones and Tyndall, but Steve Nixon sitting, reporting directly to Paul Mitchell, and Andy Howe threw him up to Paul Mitchell is an interesting one. So the whole of that right side, Steve, of that formation, as you look at it, is the most important part of our football club going forward. The other guys are the guys who, behind the scenes, have got to make this football work for Mitchell, Howe, Nixon, young Howe, and the rest of the footballing side of the club. And obviously, we've also, Steve, there are some vacancies, I think, within the academy, and there's vacancies under 16 level and under 18 level, and now under 21 level. So it's really filling. Most important part from Mitchell's point of view is filling the right people into those and slotting those in. But that'll be based on the shape that Mitchell wants this football club to go forward with. So I think there's pressure all around. We know that, but the Millers and the Silverstons of this world, they've got to operate and help drive the club forward financially. But Eddie and Buns and Mitchell have got to make sure it drives correctly up the league. So, going to be an interesting time, Steve.
Interesting times indeed, George. What's your thoughts on the new formation? I mean, there's a lot of experience there.
There certainly is, and Steve's absolutely right. That right side is crucial for the football club and for the fans. And while I'm talking, can I say, as regards Paul Mitchell, I made a statement which said that in his statement he said about his team, he didn't. I read it on the internet. It was a piece by a lazy journalist who was reporting something he said when he was at Tottenham, not Newcastle United. However, the thoughts in his mind, that's the important thing for me. And as long as they can sort that out with Eddie and get Eddie on side, and it's good to see that the bookies seem to be easing back on Eddie, so that maybe the stories, it's starting to sort itself out, and that's one of the most important features of the lot. Crucial to me is the Darren Eales. The guy says a lot. He seems okay, but I'm still not convinced he's signed up to the Geordie feeling in a way in which others have, like Amanda and Meerdad, like Rafa. They bought into it very, very quickly. I haven't seen anything of that from any of these people at all. And if they think it's not important, then they're making a huge, huge mistake because they miss out on a whole lot of support other than just supporting the team is the important thing. So that right side, all crucial, but Paul Mitchell working with Eddie Howe particularly, and then down the list to the recruiters as well, bringing the people in that we want, and that and somebody who's they've done well to start talking. Keep talking, please. Don't let things slide away until you've got a row in the background before you come and tell us something. Tell us something when it's happening, please, and not the frustrations that sometimes we've had in the past. And things will work out well. But as I say, it's that Amanda role that bothers me. I don't see anybody in that lineup that's even near being able to do what she did. And whether people like it or not, that's up to them. But I do worry a little bit about it. That they think it doesn't matter. We've had owners and chief executives who went down to the big market and bought pints and sang the Bladen races. Well, we don't want another one of them. We've sent him down to A1 with his tail between his legs. We don't want another one. We want somebody who really feels it And if they want an example, the best examples you can give are Rafa and Mirdad and Amanda. They're bought into it. And anybody there's any doubt about that, I'll repeat what she would hate me to repeat. £23 million of our own money to give the kids in Newcastle free school meals for a year and not tell anybody about it. That's really important. I'm not saying that they have to do that all the time, but they have to get the feeling of what's happening out there. And then I'd be happy. But that right side, Steve's absolutely right. Crucial to the running of the club, crucial to the running of the team, and crucial for information for fans.
Okay, Joe, what's your thoughts? It's interesting to see a formation off the pitch rather than one on the pitch, but lots of people point out quite rightly that, you know, it's a lot better than the days of just having Mike Ashley and Lee Charnley running around St James's Park.
I'm just really struggling to see where Joe Willock's going to fit into that, Steve. So it's not going to work for me. Do you know what? It smacks of a proper company. It smacks of an organised, machine with clearly defined roles. Some of the roles I completely understand. Some of the roles in these organisations I'll never understand. You know, who's doing what and who's reporting to where. I think the lads have said it, haven't they? The right-hand side, is the critical bit. I think if this was last week, one of the things I might have touched on, it's very, very clear that Paul Mitchell's, sitting where he should be. And it's interesting to see Mr. Bunt sitting alongside Eddie Howe, in terms of, coaching and performance going hand in hand and those two having to work together. There'll always be difficulties, which I think is what we were touching on last week, won't there, in terms of, your scouting network, answering directly to Paul Mitchell, and where does Eddie Howe fit into that? I've found some players. What do you think, Paul? Oh, I think they'll work. Let's sign them. Where does the coach fit into that? But, time will tell, and lines aren't set in stone. Lines can move, and I'm sure they'll work it out as they go. But I think one of the big things for me is very much around, the whole top line speaks for itself. We've got one of the greatest organisations on earth on an organisational chart that belongs to Newcastle United. That in itself, that's an FA Cup win in itself. So the top line doesn't bother me. It never has done. PIF are there. PIF are owning, the purse strings, and they've got key individuals around the board. I think, as George said, it's then down to Darren Eales and his executive team, whether that be the commercial staff, whether that be, the football inside and whatever else bases are covered. I think it's exciting. I think the question was, is this the team that will take us forward? Certainly off the pitch. I don't know who else we could bring in. I know we've lost Amanda and Mirdad, unfortunately, but who else can you bring in there now to kind of make it any better? We've got top executives working in top roles. If Eddie Howe can do what he does on the football pitch, and we can bring some players in to kind of enhance the team's performance of last season at times, it's very, very exciting times. So, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I'll chuck my 2 penny in just before you, Mitch, and I've got to be honest. I read the chat. It's people are saying to George, we've got to pass that over now. Amanda and Mirdad have gone, and I agree. I agree with what people are saying. We've done our tributes and all that to Amanda and Mirdad, and they're exactly where Kevin Keegan is now, and they're exactly where Joe Harvey is, and they're in the past. Pointless even talking about them now. We've moved on. We've now got a new structure, which is my whole point of putting that up today. We just got to say, is that the right team? And there's still changes going on, Mitch. Lots of talk now about potentially a return to football for Lee Clark coming in. I'd be surprised if it happens. I think Lee's done with football, and I think he'd be happy just to sit and watch Newcastle when he can and watch Bobby when he can, but it's an interesting topic, this, and the structure is important behind the scenes, and there's certainly a strong feel about what we've got there now, but it's changing. It's a massive change behind the scenes, and it's quite a surprise, I think, for all of us. None of us really seen this coming, but it's that structure that somebody put together gives you an indication of where we're at, and
it's very clear. And where do you fit Amanda and Mirdad into that structure? Do we have a set of platforms and ladders like Donkey Kong? Because they'll be up and down just like that.
Yeah.
Because they're so invested, because they deliver that. And I'm at the point now where I'm past about wanting anything cuddly, touchy-feely. The only thing I'm interested in now from, over the last week is what happens on that pitch and how we deliver. The only thing I think that's going to start to reunify everybody and calm everybody down is making some signings in the transfer market and seeing how they integrate with the squad and getting results on the pitch. We now have it's very clear that PAF want to make it clear this is our structure and this is the structure that we think will take us forward. And again, I'm not too bothered about how certain interactions happen. I want to see that on the pitch. That's all I'm bothered about now. The change is done. We'll move on together. Newcastle United is the clue in the name. And we can talk about it, and we've talked about it at length, and we've all expressed our own feelings about it. But we're now getting close to the business end. Kick off of a new season. I've got my own ideas, which I'm sure we'll come to later on, about why things may be a little delayed in the transfer market. There's some very interesting things happening in the bigger, wider world of football at the moment that I think is influencing our position more than people realise. And that structure is how we're going to solve it. Like I say, from Piff's point of view, Amanda and Mairdad were a problem because they don't fit into that structure. They're all over it. There'd be like a big ethereal cloud stamped across every level. And that's not a criticism. That's the way they did it and the way they wanted to do it because they were so bloody invested. And we've seen that firsthand. And that's what allowed us to get the launch pad and the platform that we've had. We've built the launch pad. We've assembled part of the rocket on it. We even had a test fire and that was fantastic. Well, now it's time to look at Mars. That's where we're headed. It's not the moon. And to go there, we really do need to be taking advantage of the people we have in that structure and adding to that, because we definitely need to be adding. We've got now vacancies. Again, have they been nudged or have they gone on their own accord at the sort of under 21, under 18 level? We need to be looking at how that academy can work better and deliver more for us. And so there's all sorts of things that need to be sort of penciled in around that structure almost. But it's very nice to see something that's quite rigid like that, because that also delivers one thing, which again, having people working at different levels and wearing different hats does. It leaves leeway for accountability. And we now have absolute accountability to people in those slots. And if things aren't working the way they want, they can't turn round and point fingers elsewhere and do the Spider-Man pointing at each other thing. I think we now need to be concentrating at making sure, in terms of Eddie Howe, I would like quick clarification. Are England interested? Is he interested? And is this going to mess up our plans? We need a quick answer on that, a very quick answer on that, in my opinion. And then we need to be getting on with building the next phase.
I think what's interesting that you said there, Mitch, you mentioned rocket boosters. And I think when you look at that structure, within that, there are rocket boosters that need to come under Silverstone, for example, because the rocket boosters that the football club need are very, very important in terms of commercial deals. Yeah. So his department is now going to have to put those boosters on. The COO, Brad, is now going to have to probably be looking at the whole aspects of the football club in terms of growth, and that includes St James's Park, any new ground, training facilities, etc., etc. And when you talk about the academy is going to become, in the next 4 or 5 years, probably one of the most important areas of the football club, that will help its growth and its development. We've seen already how we've played around with Minty. Never actually got into the academy, but he was young enough to be. And then we've seen what we've done with Elliot Anderson, who came through the academy, and they had a value on them and they were moved on. We cashed in. And I think football clubs now, we've seen it with Chelsea over a number of years, and I think the rest of the clubs are starting to wake up to what was a critical area for Chelsea among everybody else when we said that they were creating a football farm of youngsters. But you just listen to the way that the conversation spins out now, and all those kids who are coming into the academy at 9 and 10 and then beyond, and the youngsters who are getting at 16, they're getting places. They'll be lucky if one of them comes good, but that's the plan for the football club. They want one. They want one Miley. That's all they need, because that one Miley becomes very, very, how can we put it, valuable, not just as a footballer, but he has a price on his head. And we're going to have to get used to it. We've tasted it with Elliot Anderson moving on. We might have to taste it in the next 18 months with Miley and maybe one or two others if they break during this season. Because that, unless the rocket booster is really, really pushing the commercial side, that's probably the only one of the areas that the football club can get a big boost. So don't be surprised if you have Mitchell pushing youngsters that he feels as though have the potential into Eddie's first team or into the structure, and we'll start to see a lot more of them, because that's cash, that's money in the bank, if you like. So if the commercial department is struggling, and if we're struggling on the pitch in terms of European qualification, that's the cash cow. So it's something again that we're going to have to get used to. So pressure all round on that left side, but from our perspective as supporters, the most important thing is the right hand side when it comes to the start of the season, and we'll let Silverstone and we'll let the other guys take the football club in the direction that they think that needs to go, whether it's a new ground, a new training facilities, redevelopments in James's, commercial deals for shirts and training tops and tractor companies, whatever it happens to be. They've got to use their knowledge and their ability, and we've got to have massive commercial input into this football club to make it grow. It's something we're going to have to face up. And just wandering around the ground yesterday when I was in, just seeing from a corporate perspective some of the names, still quite parochial. I think we'll start to see more international and national companies getting a foothold, and that's again something that we're going to have to get used to.
Yeah, lots of stuff to cover on here. Go on, George, quickly.
Just to come back on the Amanda Meerdad thing, I'm not, if anybody misunderstands me, I'm not sitting here saying that we should do anything other than say thank you and goodbye. I mean, I agree with all of you. It's all past. But there is, whether I like it, whether other people like it or not. Somebody said other clubs don't have a role of somebody like Amanda and Meerdad. Other clubs aren't Newcastle United. There's always been a very special relationship between the supporters of Newcastle United and their football club and that team. All I'm saying is I would like to see that as a fan continue. Why did somebody like Rafa, within a month, he bought into that notion and used it to his own advantage? And that doesn't happen accidentally. And all I'm saying is I see nothing from any of these people that would persuade me that they even think that way. And if that's true, I'd be very sad about that.
I think the other thing that you're being criticised for, George, is your negativity towards Darren Eales in the chat. A lot of people are saying that you're constantly having a go at Darren Eales and it's getting boring. That's what people are saying. And we've all had opinions.
And you get back to him and you change.
We've all had opinions. We've all had opinions about different people over the course of time. There's people who agree with you, George. So it's all about opinions. That's what we always give a platform on here for. As long as you can give it in a serious, polite, and respectful way. There's nothing wrong with criticism if somebody's doing something wrong. And like I've said all along, we really need to be the critical friend on here. But I think what I would say is we're going into a new season. We're going into a new structure. So for me personally, let us, ultimately let us see where we'll go from here. Yeah. Let this almost be a new start, because well, it is in a way, Steve. It is a way, because it's a new structure, and let us remember as well that ultimately now nobody's job at Newcastle United is safe if they underperform, because the major shareholder is PIF. And they will not take second best. They want to be number one. So doesn't matter what we say on this podcast or anybody else says on another podcast for Newcastle United. What will happen is if Yasser Al-Rumayyan and other people at PIF sit down in their offices at PIF in Saudi Arabia and say, hold on a minute, that guy's not doing his job. We know where he'll end up, P45. And on his way out of St James's Park. So good luck to them all. It is a big restructure. That's the last thing I want to say about that today, because we do have a lot to get through, and we've got some great things that have been sent in. So we'll start with your wonderful music. The day I went, where we ask you to send in photographs if you're meeting somebody from Newcastle, past or present. Thank you for this wonderful selection of photographs. Supermac and Anthony Gordon, 2 players I've met. Supermac was twice in a couple of weeks. We spoke and he told me to bring in his autobiography. I had, so I did, and he signed it for me. Gordon on the way back from Wembley finally. He was so lovely, letting lots have their photo taken. He helped by taking my phone off me to take a steady photo, as I was so excited on meeting him. Thank you so much for sending that in. If you want to send them in, join our Facebook group or Facebook page, or follow me at Steve Wraith on X, and we will feature it on the show. And Bill Burnett says, too much misery on this channel these days. But Bill, I take that as a personal affront. I've been nothing but positive since 1700 hours tonight. And I've failed to point out anybody on here who was negative. So, Bill, if it's not for you, mate, I think you might as well watch the Northeast News. And believe you me, that's a hell of a lot more depressing. Okay, lots of questions coming in. Tom Dixon will talk football. He says, with Ben Dawson leaving under the 21s, do you think the club would offer it to Lee Clark? He would. Do you think Lee Clark's going to come in, Steve? Do you think he would come back? I've got to be honest. I've met Lee and see Lee quite a bit, and the feeling I've had from Lee is since Blythe Spartans, he's not really been too keen on football, and he likes going to watch Bobby play for Liverpool. He likes it. I mean, I think it would be a great move. I've told him he's wasted sitting in the stands doing nothing. Look at what he did. Look at what he did down the road at Huddersfield. He beat Brian Clough's record, 43 games unbeaten in the league. It's a hell of a record. So, would you like to see Lee Clark back at the club, Steve?
Well, Lee Clark coming back to the club with the knowledge that he's got and what he could bring would be probably a breath of fresh air to the under-21s. But whether Lee, at his age, is the right person to slot in now, I'm not too sure. You get like you, Steve. I met Lee a couple of times recently, and you get the air that he's quite settled with what he's doing. He had his fingers burnt at Blythe when he was a couple of years ago. That didn't go very well. I think Bobby moving, and then, as you say, going to watch Bobby playing at Liverpool and occasionally being back at Newcastle, mixing with some of the lads from the old days who come and spending time in the Strawberry after the match, and the hospitality that he gets when he's at the ground, and you often see him with the likes of Mickey Quinn and some of the other guys from the pre-entertainers, as well as lads from the entertainers. So I think probably Lee's in a good place at the moment. He's enjoying life. And if the club come calling, I don't think he's the sort of player who would, or the sort of person that would knock it back. And I think you probably have a very, very interesting discussion with the club about what his role would actually be and how he could take it forward. But I'm not one for speculating, Steve, and sort of throwing all sorts of names into the hat, because now we've got Paul Mitchell and it's his job.
George, would you like to see Lee Clark back in some capacity at the club? I mean, he was here under Athlete, you know what I mean? He was part and parcel of the coaching staff then, and he's a Geordie lad. Is there room for sentiment when you're making that kind of appointment? Do you think you do well at in the 21s?
I just wonder if it's past his time, I'm afraid. If Lee was going to make it in any sort of managerial role, I would have thought that what he did at Huddersfield should have been a pathway to something special. Sadly, I think the way Huddersfield treated him didn't do him any favours. So, yeah, I mean, I hears me saying we want to get the fans and the club and fans together. What a better way than doing it than having somebody like Lee who knows it inside out, being involved. But whether under 21s is the place for him, I'm not so sure. If you're talking about old players, there are others I would seriously think could come in as well. But I don't think that particular role is right for Lee at the moment. It's just the wrong time for me. Is all I'd say. But love to see him doing something for the club, because he's black. He bleeds black and white like us, and that's fantastic. And I mean, the other thing about Lee is, he's one of the few that really has survived wearing the two shirts to the Northeast quite successfully, and that's because he's well liked, and he gets away with that. So yeah, I'm sure there's a place for him. But I think not the under 21s. I think that's passed him by, and it needs somebody else to be thought about for the under 21s. But yes, let's have Lee back in some role. I'd be delighted.
Okay, Bill's back in again. This is Steve. Talking about NUFC these days should be uplifting to take us away from the miseries of world events. It is, but I think, Bill, if you're involved as deeply as we've been over the years, it's always a case of you're speaking and talking to lots of different people. You're seeing lots of stuff on social media. It's we see so much and hear so much, but we've always, as I put in my reply here in the chat, the format's never changed. We give praise when praise is due and are critical when needed. Best way to put it. We'll call that a draw, Bill. Joe, your feelings on Clark coming back? Some people saying there's no room for nostalgia in decisions like that. Would you agree?
Well, I'd just fill the whole back room with them all, Steve. You know that. However, we just started the show there talking about a new organisation, with new ideas, new people involved, particularly at that footballing level. I don't know what Lee's qualifications are. He was a wonderful, wonderful footballer. I'll give him that. I used to love watching him, particularly when Andy Cole was there. He bleeds black and white. George, the best top Lee Clark ever wore was the SMB T-shirt at the cup final. Don't ever forget. So I think, I wonder, is there better, more qualified, more hungry coaches that would fit the new manifesto than Lee Clark? Only the people who pick the jobs will know that. However, would I like to see people like Lee Clark back at the football club? You bet your bottom dollar. I think the football club misses a trick with not having people like Lee Clark involved. Certain other clubs, Tottenham Hotspur's a prime example. These ex-pros are kind of walking around the concourses and doing stuff during games and fan engagement and ambassadorial roles. Is that something that would interest him if he's kind of fallen out of love with football a little bit? Let's get them back, but let's make sure they're in the right roles. I don't think because you played for Newcastle United in the past now gives you the God-given right to take up, head of the under 21s or whatever. I think whether it's fortunately or unfortunately, those days have probably gone, Steve.
Yeah, Lee Clark coming back was an interesting comment there, Mitch. If he did come back, it would be, would be nostalgia. Lots of people accepting that. Jam in the Cab says, "Do you think we're the most nostalgic fans in the world? We almost constantly want or would welcome back with open arms players and managers who had a connection to us fans. We need to move on." So that's an interesting view as well.
Isn't that the conundrum of where we are at? This is the crossroads we are at. If we are going around saying we want to be the number one team in Europe, we should be appointing the best in class possible. And it doesn't matter whether the best in class comes from somewhere like Persepolis in Iran, whether he comes from the MLS in America, or whether he comes from a footballing backwater like Sunderland. If they're the best in class and they're the ones we should be having, they're the ones we should be appointing. And if we forever remain trapped with this parochial mindset, will only ever be the biggest club in Newcastle. And that's similarly true for the concept of having a team of 11 Geordies. It's not going to happen. Never. The days of Celtic being able to do what they did are long, long gone. And we need to be taking a much bigger worldview of football and paying attention about what's going on around the world and who's delivering the best quality that at various levels. That's not to say that there is also, well, there you go, Barry's nail on the head. Would you say Shola Amiobi was the best in class appointment for the Lone Ranger? and you know, it's again, that's not to say I don't want or couldn't see a role for people like Clarkey and Shola coming into Newcastle, particularly to help some players as they adjust to what is it about Newcastle that's different. Because players like, you remember Jermaine Jenas talking about the Goldfish Bowl?
Yeah.
That obviously he was not mentally equipped to deal with that. That it just wasn't in his personality. So somebody somewhere should have been able to get hold of him and say, well, how can we help you get through that? If that's really affecting your day-to-day performance on the pitch and you know you kind of go to Tesco's without being bothered, and how can we help you adjust to an area? We've always been terrible at that at this club. I could tell you a tale about Marcelino that I won't, which is why I'll never jump on his back the way a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I think you guys probably all know it. If you don't ask us, I'll tell you later. He was a disaster of a signing, but could have been much better than he was had he had some sort of pastoral help. Sunderland were bad at that as well. If you remember when they signed the wrong Milton Nunes, they then put him in a clubhouse in Crook, in the middle of nowhere, right on his own. He didn't know how to use a washing machine. When somebody from the club did go around, he had a room full of dirty washing because he didn't know how to wash it and look after his cell and things like that. And we've got examples of that too. That kind of pastoral care that doesn't happen at clubs very well. That's where our former players could be amazingly used. Brought in at all levels, not just for academy kids, all the way up to the first team. How are you getting on? How are you adjusting? How are you finding it? Anything we can do for you? What help do you need? What help do you need at home? How's the kids settling in at school? All that kind of proactive stuff. That's what I would personally see your Clarkies and your Steve Watsons and your Sholas being able to be brought in on an ad hoc basis to get people to understand, and if they don't get the connection, to help them try and get the connection and make it work for the best for them. And I think that for me is how it would work. When it comes to making appointments on a football basis, though, it's best in class, and I really don't care where they come from. That if we can unearth gems on the training ground, that make the gems that we can unearth from scouting become an income stream that takes the pressure off other areas of the club, because get used to letting go of minties and things like that. Because if we're going to be successful, that's exactly how it's going to be. That we'll take one or two through to the first team. We'll wave bye-bye to a hell of a lot more. But you know what will happen? PSR will be better balanced. And so there's loads of things where that can be positive for the club and generate more than just success on the pitch. And it's got to be about best in class and not giving a hoot who they are or where they're from.
I listened to a podcast with an under-21 coach, and he said that one of the most difficult aspects of his job, right the way through an academy, was dealing with footballers, knowing fine well that of the squad of 16, 15 of them were there for one player. They were there because that one player who they had already earmarked as a potential superstar could not perform on his own. He had to have a squad of players around him to allow you to play a game, to allow him to shine. So he said that was one of the most difficult aspects of his job, because he knew that. He knew that was the one. There's the one player in that. He says, but having to deal with youngsters who, especially their parents, think that they are going to be the one, when in reality they're not the one. It's a very, very hard position to be in. As for something that you said, I think one of the comments there, I think with us as football fans, because we're now into year 3, some of us are a little bit more impatient than others because our expectation levels are that. And
we haven't got much time left.
Yeah, exactly. And there's another comment somebody mentioned there, said, you know, like, let's say that the new ground, for example, or redevelopment St. James, and somebody said, well, we need to wait until we've had success on the pitch. Well, this is what Silverstone and the rest of them are going to have to get their heads around, because I listened to an article they were talking on about Everton, and when Everton moved to Bramley Moor, their match day income per game will jump from 600,000 to 3 million. And that is what happens when you get a 60,000 seater stadium. I think Newcastle could get an 80,000 seater stadium. I think they could fill it. I think they could fill it with corporates paying an awful lot of money, and they could fill it with grassroots kids paying a tenner. I think that you could, with a stadium like that size, you could do all sorts. And that's where the revenue stream will then take your football club beyond into the stratosphere. Yes, there's an investment, a 30 or 40-year investment on the ground, but this is why Silverstone and Eels and the finance guys and such like, that's why we've brought the best in class in to be able to drive those decisions forward, making the right decision for the football club, and making sure that we've got everything going. We've got revenue streams. We've got the ability to fill the ground with all different classes of expenditure, rich and poor, families, individuals, even people who are not working, and pensioners, unlike West Ham and people like that, where they're now charging them exactly the same as everybody else. I think we've got to be that, because that's the hub of our city. And this is why we've got these guys in. They've got to make that decision, but I'm sure they'll make the right ones.
Yeah, looking forward to the feasibility study. Can't be long before we hear from that. One thing we have heard today, it's something which I haven't had a chance to really look into. I presume, I know Mitch and Steve have certainly looked at it. Jerry asks, Evening all, wondered if anyone's seen the published Premier League handbook for 24-25, and any comments on associated party transactions. Mitch, I'll come to you first on this. So there hasn't really been any change in the rules, has there, from what I could gather from the WhatsApp messages that you lads were passing about today?
Not effectively. Some subtle wording changes, which may leave a little more wiggle room, but it's wiggle room only. It's not sweeping changes, that's for sure. Certainly coming out of what's been released today. They seem to be more interested in changing about associated, if you've got part ownership in another club. It used to be that if it was above a certain amount, you had to declare it. Now you've got to declare any ownership level in any other club. Now that I find interesting from the question marks hanging over, for example, Crystal Palace and the Delaware company. Is that the way they're going to eke somebody out of the woods with that? A lot of the changes are, like I say, very, very subtle. It's odd words and wording changes and phraseology. However, a lawyer might wrap rings around that. So it certainly isn't the blockbuster changes that we would be hoping for. But do you know what? If you read the wording of it, it's always been as it is at the minute in many ways. That you've got to do as much diligence as you can to show that it's of the right kind of value. And again, in the right situation, a lawyer can drive a coach and horses through some of that. I don't know how they can have that kind of wording and then look at, for example, the statistics, the accountancy stuff released today about Chelsea women's team of having an annual revenue of 8 million, making a loss of 4 million, but then being sold by Chelsea Football Club for 175 million. How does that work as accounting sense? There's no accounting sense in that, and I'm sorry, any accountant signing that off probably works for the mob. Allegedly.
Or should be.
Or should be, aye. Definitely be working for the bloody Greek mafia. You've got to look at that. How are they seeming to be able to just run roughshod? However, there's still no comment from the Premier League that all of that's been signed off and approved. Everybody's assuming that because Chelsea are acting like that it has been. But there's never been an official word from the Premier League that all of that has been approved and done.
And nor has the hotel.
And nor has the hotel. And not all the paperwork's been filed with the land registry properly about the change of ownership of the hotel, which is an absolute total farce. Yes, David, they might be creating more loopholes. But if they're creating all these loopholes and time goes on, and we look at Chelsea being left to basically run roughshod through everything and do what they like, there's a time might come where somebody in PIF just turns around and says, you know what, let's just do what we want. Part of us would hope so, but I know they like to play by the rules. I think what we do need is PIF's legal department to start dissecting those rules to the nth degree, because I think it's very, very much opportunity there in the wordings, particularly the vague wordings. And again, it comes back to things like when you see what Noon sponsorship of our sleeve has done for their presence in the region and cut their deficit to their main competitor, Amazon, by a quarter, I would suggest that 8 million shirt sleeve sponsorship was good value, no? So it's great value to them. Just because you cannot feel it in England, just because you cannot feel it in Europe, what's the value? It's probably worth 10 times that to Noon, to be fair. And so again, it comes back to what me and Stu have gone on about what something is of value to somebody here in the Middle East could be exceedingly different to what you might perceive the value in Europe. And so, and who ultimately has the final say so, because the rules seem to suggest as long as the club turn around to the Premier League and say, well, we did all our homework, and the dog ate that bit, so don't worry about that bit. And oh, look, there's a shiny thing in the corner, and we're just going to rewrite that number there. You've got to look at how they behaved with Everton. They were desperate for the Everton problem to go away, and they tried everything they could to help them, to make them disappear, and the problem disappear. And because Everton were bullish and bullheaded and didn't really listen, they got left with a problem. And the problems are only going to get worse, really. But I do think from this new publication, without much in terms of word changing, but like I say, stick it in front of a lawyer, and a lawyer might tell you, well, that's an and, not an if, and this actually word's been changed to that, and that legally can mean a multitude of different things. I think we're at that kind of level, unfortunately. That would suggest to me either there's still not a full resolution from the Man City Premier League case, or the Premier League actually won.
Yeah,
not really sure which, but it is interesting that release of the today. It's the latest the new Premier League rules have ever been released as well.
Yeah,
by about a factor of 2 or 3 weeks. So there's something going on. The daft thing is they're going to release an amendment at any time in the bloody well like.
Yeah.
They could have just reprinted last year's. It doesn't really matter that much. And it's certainly not up to date because it still lists Amanda in the board of directors of Newcastle United, by the way. So again, that gives you an idea when that book would be published. Timelines. And timelines are interesting. For me anyway, because I'm a geek. But it sort of leaves it open as to where these suddenly they've had to say, right, put that through now. I think there's more to come. There's definitely more to come. And I do think amendments on associated party transactions may be further forthcoming down the line anyway.
Okay, well, we'll watch with interest. I'll get this in before we go to the ads. George, good one from Barry, this actually. George, he says, when the Toon won 3 cups in 5 years, did the Toon fans still twist about not winning more? I'm just wondering.
Yes. We're all greedy little ducks, at least they were when I was around. My father had the pleasure of going to the ball, but there was still in between games that we lost in the earlier rounds, which, well, to put it bluntly, my father said that they're through because they went in the hole for the directors. I mean, we won a cup final. Come on, we won a cup final 2 weeks after we sacked the bloody manager because he wouldn't play Jackie Milburn. So they sacked the manager, put the trainer Norman Smith in charge, and put Jackie Milburn in the team. You know, yeah. We're greedy little ducks who want to win. But even later on, there were games that we played which we didn't win, and there were a lot of discussion in the Gallagher corner about why we didn't win them, and to the point where it was about fighting behind the scenes. So yeah, it was great, but
it's always been the same. It's always been what's changed is the internet. We used to go down the pub and talk about it.
See, the other thing I find fascinating is you lads and others talking about looking after the kids and the under-21s and this sort of thing. That's never been different. I can name the people that looked after me: Benny Craig, Joe Richardson, Alan Thompson, Joe McCarthy. You know, they were imprinted on my brain because I knew they were the people that were going to get me in that first team eventually, and so you stuck bloody close to them, and they looked after lads, hundreds of lads, more than now, because in those days, you know, every school that was anything like a school had a football team. I know big schools now, and one of them sadly is my own, who don't even have a bloody football team. You know, and a team that bred Steve Watson, Alan Thompson, and the Carricks, you know, doesn't have a football team, really. So but looking after the youngsters, it's all been the same. So Barry raises a question about that, and it just reminds me how things haven't changed really in that idea. We're greedy little ducks. We want to win all the time.
Okay, halfway through the show, time for the ads. Thank you so much for watching. By the way, 850 watching tonight. Finally, after having to pay Twitch to be able to broadcast on there now, that's hence I've got the blue tick. We've now got what we've got tonight: 450 of you watching on YouTube, 450 of you watching on Twitter. So thanks very much. Here's the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find their website at skipsandbins.com. Contact us, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to United Group Travel, they are the Travel and Tourism Award winners in 2024. Their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. A big thanks to Media Arts. You can find them at www.media-arts.co.uk. And don't forget, we are a podcast. You can find us on iTunes or Spotify or other podcast providers. If you want to help the channel grow, then hit the like button, the little thumb underneath the video, click share and share to your social media, or join the channel for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to take out a one-off payment membership, go to nufcmatters.com and hit membership. And for a £25 fee, you get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. You can also put a smartphone over the top of this QR code. It'll take you straight there. And don't forget, we also help the food bank on this channel. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is a website where you can make a virtual donation today.
And if you are watching on Twitter, don't forget to jump over to YouTube and search NUFC Matters and hit the subscribe button. It is free to do so. A couple of events coming up. Gibbo and Supermac, Gibbo and Rubley, will be together next Friday, a week today, at Gateshead Leisure Centre. Tickets are available, £30, gatesheadleisurecentre.co.uk. Going to be a cracking night, that, and Gibbo has said there's quite a few tickets gone for it, so get yourself along to Gateshead Leisure Centre and meet a Newcastle United legend. And you can meet 15 of the legends at the Tyne Theatre on the 24th of January next year. And that's an evening with the entertainers. Tickets on sale at the box office 0844 249 1000 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk. And Peter Beardsley in the same month will be at the Irish Centre. And tickets for that, £30, newcastlelegends.com. As always, on a Friday night, plenty to get through, and we're now going to have a few of these. Lookalikes, this one was sent in by Daddy Al Ramayan. Lookalikes Steve Ray, he says, has NUFC Toon Talk done a merchandise deal with Blenheim Palace selling Stu Penman mugs? Not to my knowledge, but I will ask John. Looks like Klopp is mates with Trump. Toon Lookalike from Chippers. Thanks for that one. I've had a couple chucked in this week. This one from Stephen Kennedy. Steve Wraith Lookalike gets the...
Oh, dear me.
I'm not that big in real life, Stephen. I honestly. Hasty Lookalike from someone who wanted to remain nameless. Anyone recognise this little pup?
That's cute.
Somebody who didn't want to remain nameless was Jimmy Moore. Toon Lookalike, Disco Hasty.
And a clue, Jimmy, hasn't it?
And Rita Maria Jackson sent this one in, Steve. Yeah, it's quite good. There's a theme to Rita's because
Rita changed her name, by the way.
Yeah, she has. She got married.
I thought so.
So to Jodie. So Lookalikes this week were from Bo's Museum. So she also sent this one in. Jimmy Nail and the local artist Norman Cornish.
Yes, yeah.
That's a pretty good one. See, we'll have this one sent in from Darren. Him and Mickey Almiron with pink hair.
Yep.
Thanks for that, Darren. And this one from David Cook, the new boy Pivas and Manuel's Mason Mount.
I can see that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very good. This one doing the rounds from Jimmy. Toon Lookalike, Donald Trump and a steak.
Classic.
And Tom Maguire sent this one in. Sean Tate and Liam Kennedy. I think Liam will be over the moon with that. And this one, From Jimmy as well. WWE star Cody Rhodes and NFL quarterback Joe Burrow. The same colour hair, mate.
Yeah, he's just dyed his hair, hasn't he?
And Jimmy Moore with this one as well. Matt Gates and Butthead. Very similar. But I laugh the same as well. Top three then. This one chucked into the lookalikes. This was there was a few, but we had a late entry today, lads, as well. So this one, the new training top and someone's shower curtain from Dean Chow. That's number 3. Number 2, another one from Rita. Steve and an ancient Chinese figurine in the Bordeaux Museum. The late winner from Broken Flask and from David Warner. Me, have I joined the Falcons? That's very good, David, and well done, Broken Flask. I did see yours. I didn't have time to load yours, but very similar. Yeah, he's a good-looking lad. If you've got lookalikes, get yourself on the Facebook group or Facebook page. Join or like, or join me on X at Steve Wraith, and I will stick them up on next week's show. Okay, lots of other questions coming in. We'll try to keep it upbeat for those of you who think I'm a miserable sod on a Friday night. John Askew says, afternoon, everyone. If Eddie's boundaries are not clarified to his satisfaction, could there be trouble ahead? Will Eddie face probing journalist questions at the weekend regarding the perceived power struggle? And do fans have the right to know anyway? And to maximise our prospects and performance this season, how important do you think it is for the club to be absolutely united come August the 17th? Are you worried to any extent? It's an interesting concept. Seeing as we've talked a lot about it, Steve, already about the makeup of what's going on behind the scenes. The question I'll take out of everything that John put was, should fans be kept up to date about everything like that? Is it really important that fans are kept up to date with the political ongoings behind the scenes, or is it none of our business? Because people quite rightly point out in the chat that, you know, we don't hear anything. There's no people at some other clubs who come out and give a regular running commentary of what's going on. I mean, I don't focus on Arsenal, Man U, you know, Liverpool. I don't see what's going on day to day with their owners. But is it something we should even be considered? We should be up for it. What makes us different? Why should we be informed?
You know what? Go to Spain, go to Madrid, go to Barcelona, and see how much pressure their manager is under. Look at the yards and yards and yards of reporting that's done. You know, it's 15, 20 pages on Barcelona and on in their local paper, and in Madrid it's just as bad. This is what keeps the football clubs ticking over. Are we turning the other way now? Are we saying that we're no longer interested? We're just going to tag along on a Saturday, see the performance on the pitch, and then keep our criticism for the pub after the match, and then move on to the following week? Is that where we're heading, or are we now in a situation where we need to know basically everything about the football club, what Eddie had for tea, you know, what time the kids went to bed, all that type of thing? It's a difficult one to balance out, Steve. You know, we eat, sleep, and drink football. We sleep and drink a football club, and with that comes an element of pressure, an element of demanding to know what's going on. And I think social media, and I think the way that, you know, the lack of newspapers, and now, I mean, the pressure that they must have been under. I mean, Gibble was up there every single day talking to people and getting stories, and Alan Oliver was exactly the same. Now we're in a situation where you have, let's say Lee, for example, he has to still produce, you know, 4 stories a day, but he has to have them almost for 9 o'clock in the morning. You know, the whole emphasis on understanding what's happening at a football club has exploded in that sense. Is it because on Newcastle Unique? Probably not. I think Manchester United fans are exactly the same. I think Arsenal fans, Chelsea fans, all the top clubs, and I think even down to, you know, the lower leagues, and you look at at Wrexham now, for example, and the pressure that they're under, and you've got they're now trying to get Division 2 to Division 1 games transferred to America. Birmingham City wanted it because they're playing Wrexham and they wanted it to take place in America because the demand's there. There's like sponges when it comes to wanting to understand what's going on with football club. Mitch mentioned the Goldfish Bowl a couple of minutes ago with Jermaine Jenis, and is that knowledge or the demand for knowledge about a football club, and is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? You know what? I could spin this any way you wanted, and I would still be in an argument with myself. I think I'll still be not too sure about it, Steve. I can see the positives, I can see the negatives. I do think that yes, you've got to go into a season all united. Yes, we're interested because the whole top and bottom of it is if Eddie Howe's not happy or if England are sniffing around and we're not aware, we probably want to know it sooner rather than later so the club can move forward. We don't want to be taken for mugs. If there are obstacles and fears, and he's got worries and concerns, let's hear them. Let's have them out in the open. That's one school of thought. The other school of thought being it's nothing to do with us. It just creates more havoc, creates more mayhem. So I'm stuck on this one, Steve. I know where I would like to take it, but I know no matter which direction you went, you would never get it right. I think that's the problem.
Okay. Interesting comment by Alan, who joins us on a Monday, George. He says, I can tell you, Steve, that Arsenal, Spurs, Man United and Chelsea fans feel the same way. They get told nothing and complain in the same way on their podcasts. Simple. So should football fans be kept up to date with what's going on in the boardroom as opposed to what's happening on the pitch?
I have a hesitate about the boardroom thing. Not sure why our owner should be any different to others, but I do get the point, and I would say that we are unique. I know that's a big thing to say, and why we're unique: one city, one club. And when you're talking about Newcastle, it isn't just a city. Around the small place where I sit with Steve at the matches, to our left we've got half a busload of lads that come from Berwick. To our right we've got lads that come up from Darlington every match and further south. Behind with people that travel up from York to every game, and that's the problem. We're not just parochial in the sense that it's just Newcastle we're talking about. It's the whole Tyneside conurbation. As I've said to you before, when I was county commissioner for Scouts in Durham, I always used to try and find out before I went anywhere which team did the village support. And if you went out to St John, which is nearly in bloody Cumberland, the Cumberland borders at the end of the street in St John, the top pub was Newcastle, the bottom pub was Sunderland. You've got to deal with all of that. And the only way you can deal with it is feed them as much information as you can. When it comes to the levels of like how a manager's being treated and how he feels, that's crucial. But past managers who knew what they were doing didn't need to be told that. I mean, look at the way Rafa dealt with it all. Somebody who wasn't even British was able to handle it. Can you all not remember that seething news conference when he was looking for support for his team in the transfer market at a crucial time? And he was seething, and people could feel it, and people sympathised with him. So I think, yes, give the fans information. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Even if it sometimes backfires a little bit, I'd rather it be that than be total silence. And we've talked about Manchester United, Chelsea, and Arsenal, and all the rest of them. Look what happened when their fans didn't know about the European Super League. They ended up bloody rioting on the streets because they didn't know. Because all that was done in secret in the boardroom. So, no, I'm in favour of trying to give the fans as much information as they can, as much information as is proper. there's certain things that mustn't leak out, particularly concerning individuals. But I'd be inclined to give them as much information as they can. It has a way of filtering out anyway, but I'd rather that was somebody up front saying this is what's happened, rather than it coming out through the back door or in whispers or whatever. And that's something Newcastle has been famous for over the years, with the various chairmen that we've had and board of directors and so on. So I'd be in favour in trying to give the fans as much information as we can.
Okay. Joe, are you the same?
Yeah, obviously, Steve, but it's about levels, isn't it? As George has just said, have we got a divine right to hear what's said in every meeting at every level of that structure that you shared earlier? Absolutely not. It's nothing to do with us. They're running a multi-billion-pound company. I'm interested in what Barclays Bank do as a customer, but I don't ask for the minutes of the board meetings. So if it's to do with, and I keep coming back to it every week, if it's to do with football and footballers and formations and transfers and the stuff that really matters to us, then yeah, come and talk to us and keep talking to us, because it's really, really important that we're connected in that way. But I think the social media generation, I think, whether it's through your X account or your Instagram or whatever it is, society's got this real thirst now, hasn't it, for just feed me, just tell me stuff about stuff. What's the football club going to say? I mean, what are they going to come out this afternoon and tell us that they told us yesterday, and then they'll be thinking, what are we going to tell them all tomorrow? So I think it's got to be tailored, it's got to be tempered, but it's got to be right. We talked last week about who the right individuals are to come and give us these messages, and we that's an internal debate. But fundamentally, for me, I just can't wait to get the football started. And to be talking about, the formation and didn't Jacob Murphy do well when he skinned that fullback and all that type of stuff. That's what I want to get back to. I am a football fan. I've been a football fan ever since I can remember. It was just the way I was brought up. So if it's to do with football matters and footballing things, yeah, by all means. But if Bunce doesn't agree with Howe, who doesn't agree with Mitchell, who doesn't agree with Al Ramayan, it's none of our business. We're not going to know, So, football clubs could always do more. But what are they supposed to say? There's only so much you can tell your population every minute of the day, and they'll soon run out of that. So, work to be done, but let's just get back to football.
Yeah, Mitch, would you agree with Joe's analysis there?
Handling the never-ending thirst for information sees the Chronicle turning into clickbait shite at the moment online. I'm waiting for that. Here's a picture of Anthony Gordon with a coffee in Starbucks. Have you seen a Newcastle player in a favourite coffee shop? What do you think? Eddie Howe's favourite coffee is? And then probably run a poll on it and then infer some sort of transfer information out of the results.
What was in the cup?
Exactly. That's where we've got with it. As a fan base, we've reached out and said we'd like interaction. Am I impressed with the interaction that I've seen so far? Not really. Am I impressed with the FAB? Not at all. And that's not sour grapes, by the way. I'm just think it becomes lip service, and that's what we're in danger of getting, is repeated items of lip service. I think Yano's quite right there in terms of there'll always be somebody who want to find negativity, or I think we do have fans in the fan base, particularly certain ones and with certain prominent associations with certain fanzines, who would twist on 21. And you'll never keep that side of the fan base happy unless they're getting their own way. I think it's finding a balance between keeping we engaged and informed as a fan base, and of course it gets easier when there's actual football happening. There's things to talk about. Things that are undeniable that have happened in games that we've all seen with our own eyes, and we still all might disagree on it. But I think it is a part of a generational change on the back of things like rolling news, constant need for information, social media, and driving as much information as possible. And some of it, you need a shit filter so big at the minute now to get through it all. It's very, 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 very difficult. But it still finds ways to leave a fan base still suffering from a degree of Stockholm syndrome and the fractures and divides of the past that are all still ready to go in a second. That it's almost like you've got the fire put out, but the embers are still there, and somebody's got a can of petrol on the sidelines ready just to pour a little bit on when it suits. And that's really frustrating. I find that exceptionally frustrating. We can't seem to be able to agree to disagree sometimes. At the end of the day, we all want one thing: a successful, brand new, bigger, bolder Newcastle United that has a name on the world stage. And we've got all the ingredients for that. And maybe what we need to do is sometimes agreeing that we've just got to let the process happen and enjoy a bit more of the ride and enjoy the journey and forget the destination a little bit. Because it is a journey. It's been a hell of a journey so far. And it's going to go... I think we've just put another tier on the roller coaster, and we're going to have some ups and downs along the way. But I think we now have everything in place to deliver something really, really special. And we shouldn't get lost in a thirst for knowledge about certain things we should really never have any interest or right to know in the first place.
Question from Sean. Question for Joe and Mitch. Who's got the best collection, Joe's runners or Mitch's watches? Both are unreal.
He has got some good bloody trainers, Lee.
I know, but you've got more money than me, which is why you've got nicer watches. Can we call it a draw?
We'll call it a draw. There we go. We've had enough misery and fake accusations tonight.
All right, I'll answer the question. My shoes.
You put a trainer. You put a pair of trainers up, and I'll put a watch to accessorise with it. There you go.
Next week, starting next week, it's a new feature.
A fashion.
trainers and watches. It keeps us off. Stops us talking about Amanda, me, dad, Darren Eels, tickets. And we might as well just scrap the show because it's
What do you want to know? What do you want to know about our trainers and watches, though? How much detail do you want?
What they smell like, and does the watch give you an itch? Yeah.
Watch give you an itch.
Yeah, that's why I don't wear a watch, because I used to get an itch there.
You're buying too cheap watches, man.
Right.
Get the stuff out the nickel in. Bloody hell.
I thought the Rolex wasn't supposed to cost 50 quid. Trippier given personally by the club, Chronicle. Almiron in advanced talks with the Saudi team. The reason I put that up is lots of people are talking in the chat. If you go to the Chronicle, there's a story there about why Kieran Trippier was seen at Greg's at the airport. And Almiron, according to the BBC Twitter account today, is in advanced talks with the Saudi team. Is it true? Isn't it true? Who knows? Weird though, that with Trippier pictured at the airport by a fan who took the photograph of him, we now have this sudden story about Almiron making its way out into the public domain. That's just the cynical thievery, of course, but who knows?
I tell you what was funny, Steve, when on social media they showed you Bruno out with a personal trainer getting himself fit, doing all sorts of exercises. Next thing you know, there was a one popped up, and it was Miggy. But Miggy was wearing Puma kit.
Yeah. Bill Burnett. I think I've actually stumped Bill Burnett tonight, because I got the jibe in about tickets before he put it up on the questions there. So unlucky, Bill. Touche. I got you there, mate. Do want to talk a little bit about this, something which I I'd forgotten about, but I will bring it up. And it was Kieran Maguire put this out a few weeks back. Arsenal banned 20,000 members and 54 season ticket holders in crackdown on touting. Now, if you want to read about that, it is in the Evening Standard. And Steve, I will point back to my "I told you so" moment with this, because what I basically said with the change in the way that we have our season tickets at the club now, you know, and it becoming digital, something which George has had problems with and other people have had problems with, taking the hard copy off us and giving us something different. Digital, you know, you have to produce it on your phone, and changing the way that we get tickets. I said that would, part of the excuse for going towards that was to stop touting outside the ground. And I did say that this would simply lead to touting online. And that seems to be the case, because if it's happening at Arsenal, then it's happening at other clubs, including ours. And we've talked on here many times about people who are struggling to get tickets, you know, when they apply for tickets, you know, the remaining tickets at our club, and then overinflated tickets, Steve, appearing online, you know, for an excess of £1,500 in some cases. So it seems as if, you know, Arsenal have taken a stand. I wonder whether that is why, you know, Newcastle obviously Newcastle have changed their membership, haven't they? They've launched a new membership this year. I wonder if there'll be a stricter look at things like this moving forward, you know, collectively, not simply Newcastle.
Yeah, I think they will, and I think Arsenal was an interesting case in point. I read up on exactly what was happening with this when the story broke, which was about, well, it must have been about 6 or 8 weeks ago, and the first reason that Arsenal that it raised its head was because they thought they had, you know, they were going to have 60,000 in the ground, and there were certain games where there was barely 54, and people started querying what was going on. Then there was the situation whereby when they did their checks, they found out that a lot of tourists were coming to Highbury, or well, not Highbury, but the Emirates now, as it's called. And they found out that they'd been paying extortionate prices. Well, of course, London, 60,000. It's a ticket tout's dream, and it's been established down in London for theatres and football and, you know, events, you name it, for, you know, since time immemorial. But these guys have plenty of money, and they're buying, you know, some of them were buying season tickets and then selling them on for like 4 times the price because they knew. And it was the fans themselves that shopped some of the season ticket holders, because they said it was never the same person sitting in the seat twice. There was an awful lot of that going on, but there were also an awful lot of duplicate, triplicate, and quadruple names as members, but also a whole batch that were obviously just from, you know, ticket touts who just took the risk and just, you know, oh yeah, 200, 300 memberships, you know, we'll just buy them. It's nothing. That's like turned out to be covering the cost of one, maybe 2 tickets. And if they were lucky in ballots and lucky in being able to get tickets for games, then they were creaming it. And the club turned around and went, oh, we want to cream it. We don't want these people creaming it. So there's an awful lot of it to do with sort of self-preservation, and why should somebody be exploiting the situation and taking the money when we could have the money in our back pocket? And that's what happens on the resale. I mean, there's already resale tickets knocking around for Newcastle games. You know, they're talking like 95, 100, 120 quid for tickets. And you're thinking, where have these tickets come from? It is. I think it's a difficult one, and I'm sure that the ticket office are looking into it, but I don't know how vigorously at the moment. But I think the whole, as you said right at the very beginning, the whole electronic ticketing system was brought in to try and stamp on ticket touting as a whole. I don't think we had much of a problem. I did know of ticket touts outside St James's. We're always lads. Any tickets for sale, especially if we're playing Man City or somebody like that, where they thought they could buy a ticket, and then, you know, some of them were selling them on and making a fiver. Some of them were selling them on to away fans. But we know for a fact that there were fans within our fan base at home that were selling tickets for to likes of Liverpool when they a couple of seasons ago when they were thought were still in with a run in the Championship. So if it can stamp out that type of thing, and I think that's probably the most important aspect of it. But the trouble with the whole ticketing thing is you take a sledgehammer to crack a nut. I think that's the main sort of bugbear that a lot of people have, and the distribution of the tickets. So certainly Arsenal have taken the bull by the horns. Obviously, 20,000 is an awful lot of tickets to cull, an awful lot of members to cull out of a list, isn't it? And 54 season ticket holders as well. So let's see whether other clubs follow suit in the weeks and months to come, Steve.
Yep, let's George. It's interesting because you've had your issues with tickets, mate.
Yeah, positive and negative. And I've got to say, by and large, and I've got to give credit where credit's due, the people that have helped me been absolutely super. And I'll leave my personal thing there. I don't want to go into this season. Well, yeah, let's leave it at that. The problem for me is, looking from the outside, when I see what our club's done with our away fans, they have created the problem. The way they've turned our fans into bloody criminals by not allowing sensible families and relatives and friends to give tickets for away games, for example. We end up with empty seats at away games, and those tickets could have been sold or could have been passed on, and sometimes they appear on websites, those tickets. And you think, well, why? And to actually filter into the system something which I've gone on about being totally illegal, giving people tickets that don't really exist, just force them to go to the ticket office to get the real one, it's just not legal, but they're getting away with it. But as I say, it's like everything else about football. If they can label football fans down, almost criminals, then we get it. And in this instance, I've got to say, that's exactly what our football club have done, in my opinion, especially with the away tickets. So it's a tough one. Arsenal, if they've got the actual data that proves what they're saying, and I don't think they publish it if they haven't, then those people that have misbehaved deserve what's coming their way. Some of the things that our families and friends were doing for away matches, I wouldn't regard as misbehaving. It's common sense, just doing it sensibly. They're not making lots of money. That's the other thing. Whereas if people, that number of people have been making money out of it, then they deserve what's coming their way. I'm not in any way ever going to support something which is making the game dearer for the real fans and denying real fans getting tickets in some ways. So, it'd be interesting to see if there's anybody that follows suit. The other issue for me, of course, is that how in London the pricing issue's gone bananas with all the concessions going. Kids and pensioners all paying the same price as everybody else. I might have invested interest in that, I know, but even so, seems a bit over the top to me. If their revenue's that bad, well, of course, when your club's £1 billion in the debt, the revenue is that bad. It's a mess, and it, for me, as I've just said, some of the messes of the club's own makings. If they just sit down and think about it more carefully and in a much more structured way, rather than try and demand the answers, in some sort of legalistic way, then what happens is what's happened to us. We end up with empty seats in the away end sometimes.
Yeah, it's the touting situation, Joe. It's it's something which we always used to see those guys standing outside the bottom of the Gallagher as we went in. You used to probably see them with Lenny when you were walking up to the game. They've gone now because it's all but it's online. All they've done is transfer a problem. Collectively, football clubs have transferred the problem from something that's visual and outside the ground, where I hate to say it, but at least you knew who you were buying your ticket off and if it was genuine. Whereas now it's a digital issue. And what's happened essentially is, thousands of people up and down the country who aren't even connected to Newcastle United emotionally or other clubs emotionally have just gone and bought tickets to bought memberships so they can then become a member to try and get tickets to then sell an overinflated price. There's always a loophole, isn't there, Joe? That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, and that's the bit, isn't it? I mean, whether it's a legal thing, whether it's, like you say, mates just said, I can't go to the match, Steve, see if you can get me 20 quid for that, or, whatever the crack is. How do you police it? How do you switch it off? Because what I don't want to do is push this issue right down the road that we end up having retina scans and fingerprint recognition and, and going down all that bloody line. So it's a massive problem. And I think, we talk a lot, don't we? I mean, Steve mentioned again there, the need for larger capacity stadium, for example. Do you just take the demand out, by creating more capacity, by creating more affordable tickets and such like, does that kind of squash the market? But unfortunately for our football club, the more successful we get, the more people are going to want to see us, the more people are going to pay to do that, and the more creative ways that people are going to come up with to be able to make a profit. Wherever there's money to be made at anything, whether it's football tickets, sweets, football cards, drugs, trainers, Neil's dodgy watches, whatever it is, there's money to be made, so people are going to exploit it. I'm not entirely sure what the issue, what the answer is, Steve. I do agree with George. I think one of the things that wrangles the most is there's a genuine desperation for genuine people to come and watch, Joe Linton maraud around for 90 minutes. We've got the privilege of doing that. So I think there's that's the bit about when there's empty seats, when there's tickets going in the wrong hands to the wrong type of people and stuff. There's genuine people who can't get to watch the match. And I think that's the bit that kind of sours it a little bit. So what do the football club do? Do they put, do we all get bloody strip searched on our way into the ground? And, do you have to prove who you are and where you bought your ticket from? What does that do to kind of getting the games kicked off at 3:00? I don't know. When you're trying to police 50, 60, 70,000 people into gates, it's not easy to do. But yeah, there's money to be made, isn't there? And while there's money to be made, people will do it. So I don't want to say turn a blind eye to it. I get very there's been plenty of gigs over the years that I've tried to get tickets for and you can't get in, and then you go on eBay, or as it was then, or whatever, these resale, and a 60 quid ticket they're now asking for 500 for plus. Do you know what I mean? And it pisses you off. But whilst people have got 500 quid and are willing to spend 500 quid to go and watch Taylor Swift or whatever it is, people are going to sell them, aren't they? You know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe this is why we need Steve's approach to a bigger stadium with more seats, with more affordable pricing, so more people can have access to it and just take the market away.
I think it's leading to that. I do think that's what the feasibility study will show. We'll wait and see. They're not in a rush to give us the results of that, and they'll be doing things behind the scenes, I'm sure. But it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out. I'm not getting into what PDK suggested. That's an entire program on its own where people have a big argument, and this is a happy channel. Mitch, touting online.
Look, what I think I've seen from Arsenal is one of the influences from American ownership in the game. Over the last few years in the NFL and in college sports, the owners have been railing against season tickets for a number of different reasons. The best example being the Nebraska Cornhuskers, the college football team, who have a very large stadium, but it's nearly all season ticket holders. And those season tickets come with a 99-year debenture, which means they can be passed on in wills. So the chances of you getting a season ticket there now is you're not just waiting for a dead man's shoes, you're waiting for the dead man's shoes. If you're lucky and they forget to pass it on in a will. And what that does is actually minimise match day income to a set amount. So if they're paying, say, $30 per game, but you've got 10 games a season out of 20 where you know you can sell those tickets for $80 a game, you're losing out with season tickets. And so what they're doing in the States is very much dampen down the amount of season tickets available so they can sell more tickets on a match-by-match basis. Now, unfortunately, I would suggest that will not lead to availability of more affordable tickets. It'll just be the availability of more higher-priced tickets. And they will want to maximise match day income as much as possible. That seems to be the way that certainly the American ownership wishes to drive things. And on the back of Bordeaux collapsing recently in the involvement of American ownership in that, shows you it's not always the right way to go. But certainly that's the problem I see. It's certainly a problem we have. We have, by demographic, one of the oldest fan bases in the Premier League because we've got lots of people with historic season tickets because season ticket was the way to go. But it does, ironically, hinder the match-to-match day income. That's why you're seeing everybody in the chat saying, oh, well, I went online to try and get tickets. I thought I'd get one in the barracks and they're sold out for this amount of games already. Yep, that's the way it's going, ladies and gents.
Yeah, it is.
And there is a trend against season tickets happening. I don't know if you've seen, there's a group of Ipswich fans are petitioning the club to scrap season tickets because they want to go. And their argument is as well, I only want to go to 4 or 5 games and I'm finding it very, very difficult to just go to 1 or 2. I don't think anything will come of that. But it's an interesting change in mindset, and is that a generational thing? I've got no doubt that it is. But I think when you've got American-based ownership who will constantly be looking at the bottom line and looking for ways to do it, and Arsenal ditching that many members and season ticket holders, that's going to free a lot of tickets up for them on a match-by-match basis, and they ain't going to be affordable.
I think there's another aspect to it as well. I don't know whether you know, but Leeds United are pushing for or introducing an away season ticket.
Yes, I've seen that.
Yep, and the only people who can claim an away season ticket, can buy one, are those who went to every single game last season. What they are doing, however, is that the price of that away season ticket is £870.
Yes,
averages out at more than you would have paid.
Yes, more than the game-by-game basis, yeah.
But what they're saying is that because it's everybody who, being offered to people who went to every game last season, those people are more than likely going to do exactly the same this season. So it gives them the opportunity to guarantee that they're going, they're not stuck in a ballot, etc. So they see it as a bit of a loyalty thing. But on the other extreme, you look at, for example, people in the corporate area of, let's say, Newcastle United, everyone else has to go through all sorts of hoops, and you have to, as Joe said, virtually have your retina, your eye photograph done. But nobody stopped the corporates when they want to swap the tickets around and hand them over. So there's an odd variable there, isn't there?
I think you'll find the idea for that with Leeds comes from the San Francisco 49ers connections. I believe they do a system, because getting away tickets for away fans isn't terribly common in the NFL. But the club do get a limited amount of tickets to share with their fans to go to away games. And I think they do packages which include flights, etc. Well, of course, these packages is just for the tickets. It won't include flights and shit like that. But you can see where it's come from, and it's come from the NFL part of their ownership, 100%.
Well, there you go, fans. Anyone who's missed out on Ticket Talk, I've done a little bit there for you. It's a while since we've talked about our old friend. We'll leave it now for a month. 990 of you watching, all tuned in, eagerly awaiting Tweet of the Week. and this does get more and more difficult for me to go through because there's so many things which are not politically correct. So another health warning: if you're easily offended, it's probably best to go and make a cup of tea. But I have siphoned a lot out of this week, believe you me. I did like this though from Stephen Kennedy. The craziest cult that you've ever heard of and still exists today, he simply put at the top, NUFC matters. Thank you very much, mate.
Yes.
Here is the world's
That's
most
the
accurate.
point,
Here's the world's most accurate pie chart, lads.
Oh, I've eaten lemon as well.
And a lovely spot to sit and think for a couple of hours, lads.
Oh God!
Yes.
Not me.
Get brained.
I think we've all been here when you stick your head in the oven to check if the mince pies are ready. And it's time for a sing song. At first I was afraid. I was petrified.
Oh, God.
I like that one. I'm sure I've had this one before, but thanks, Gary. Whoa, we're halfway there. Whoa, lemon on a pear.
Yeah, we've had that one.
Still good to sing it.
Oh, Jesus.
To the left. Take a detour, y'all. Road closed this time. Right lane's too closed. Left lane's too closed. Freeze! Everybody, traffic jam.
Dear me.
Hey,
That was a lot of effort.
I think he started paying people to do these. He started paying people to do these.
I had to practice that before I came on. I didn't even get a round of applause. This one's brilliant, lads. This one is the last singing one today, I promise. Edward Farm said everyone can join in with Steve singing this one on Tweet of the Week. So these are all Facebook profiles. Wendy night has come. The land is the dark and the moon.
The eyes are improving because
is the only line we see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't shed a tear. Just along as you stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Thank you, Edward. That is brilliant. What a lot of effort you went to make that, mate. Thank you. Excellent.
How many weeks did he sit to do that?
That's brilliant, though. I love the fact that he crossed out the and darling.
No, it's fantastic.
I mean, that's cheating, to be honest. Anyway, here we go with the signs. This has become a thing now on NUFC Matters. Skid risk.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, now.
I told you. If you're easily offended and if you're having your tea. Pets at home. Wonderful sign placed underneath. Cat's eyes.
I wonder if that's an offer. Did they do 2 for 1 or?
Dear me. Doorbell doesn't work, so just shout ding dong very loudly. And this one, an American from Jimmy, frog parking only, all others will be towed.
Oh,
very good. This one, save an energy, Jimmy says. Save energy, how would you like it if someone turned you on and then left? Good sign, good sign. I wonder if it has the effect. This is from George. Notice this is the back gate. The front gate is around the back. Thanks, George, for sending that one in.
I had to read it 3 times.
Soup of the day at Stu's latest bar, gin.
Gin.
And this sign, when a bridge suddenly appears unexpectedly. Oh, shit, a bridge. I think that's in Japan where the lads are playing. Lovely gravestone here in loving memory of Harry Fiddler, also his wife Fanny. Rest in peace.
Dear me.
And emergency telephone, dial 999 for Coast Guard, police, fire or ambulance. And the 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3. Good luck there. This is a great photograph, lads, of when you've all got to go to the toilet at Wetherspoons. Guys from the TV license knocked on my uncle's pal's door and he told them he didn't have a telly. And the guy was like, "You've got an aerial on your roof." And he said, "I've got a pint of milk in the fridge. It doesn't mean I've got a cow out the back." And he shut the door.
Excellent.
And it's an interesting question. Is my mouth waters when I smell steak. I wonder if the same happens to vegans when they mow the lawn.
Good question.
It is a good question. When you're trying to get a tan and your neighbour looks over the fence.
Yeah.
God, those cats are awful, aren't they? Tweet of the week from Soda Pop Kid. Nice to see you again, mate. In order to make an appointment, he first had to update his operating system, download an app, get a username, change a password, log into a health portal, navigate the messages, and write to his doctor. By then, it was too late. It's pretty much sums up where we're at the moment in this country, I think. Guys, I need your help. In the middle of an argument with my wife, she said, "You're right. What the hell do I do next?" And here's a great photo. Family reveal first photo of the world's tallest baby. And breaking news here. Man hit by a flower tool. He said, flying power tool. He said everything was fine, and then bosh.
Oh, very good.
And if you're afraid of dying alone, become a bus driver. And Josh, thanks for this one. Would have been the perfect job for him, he says. Can't remember the last time England had a lunchtime kick-off on a Saturday. This is the news that Jurgen Klopp has turned down the England job. Top 3, Elvis Presley Etch-a-Sketch, Hound Dog, Jailhouse Rock, Love Me Tender, and All Shook Up.
Clever.
Number 2 was this one from Gary. This lady using her bread as knee pads while she looks at other bread.
Oh.
And the winner was this mug. The word at the top, ejaculate. What does it mean? What a Yorkshire person says to Jack when he's not on time. Ejaculate. Brilliant stuff. Thank you, everybody, for sending them in. I'm sure we'll get some more suitable ones next week. As usual, Jimmy Wilson on fire this week, sending us about 200 of them, of which about 10 made it. Stephen Kennedy managed to get one in after sending us about 50, which were all inappropriate. The rest of you, though, thanks for sending them in. Try and keep them a bit cleaner and within woke standards, please, and not too offensive. But that is Tweet of the Week this week. And it is a happy birthday to Simon Davies, or should I say, happy birthday, Simon, because he's 50 today. Well done, mate. You've made the big 5-0. And he said, that song murdered my ears are bleeding, says Fast Cleaner. My dog just jumped out the window, says Ian. And you have seen Matt has got talent, says Dave. Voice like Duncan Novell, says Andrew. Is that a compliment? Mozza's not happy. Oh, Steve Ray. And Dean says, I think Steve enjoys these so too much.
Yeah.
And we've discussed you singing, Steve, says Ian. Okay, well, you send them in and I sing them. That's basically the way it works, guys. Yeah. Over 1,000 watching tonight. Thank you. We'll never take it for granted. Much appreciated. I am going to go with Steve Bennett and his questions to finish off the show tonight. And he said, what are the guys' thoughts on Bordeaux folding? Surely a big warning to all clubs, Steve.
Definitely. I mean, the situation of Bordeaux, this is a prime example of somebody basically getting bored. That's the way it comes over. It's got bored, decided to just, you know what, I'm losing too much money, I'm out of it. No consideration for the fans, no consideration for anything else. Just basically throwing the club to the tip. Is it something more fundamental? Is it the whole setup in France that needs to be looked at? Is it the fact that PSG have won the league for the last 10 or 11 seasons? Is it that TV revenue has gone through the floor? There's just not the. I mean, there's plenty of talent in France. There's plenty of talent at the French national team level. But very few of them seem to be playing in France, and that's probably says an awful lot. I feel, I mean, like whenever this happens, you feel for the fans of a football club when their club goes down the pan. But the only thing you can really come back and say is, well, how has it got to this? How long has this been going on before they're finally thrown the whole lot in? You know, it's just Has there been issues at Bordeaux over a period of years, and it's just come to a head, or is it just somebody just going, "Woof, I'm out of here"? We saw it at Bury where it was
Yeah.
some crazy guy who usually, and it's happened at Southend as well. It's real estate. It's to do with getting their hands on. They'll offer the club a new ground, but really what they want is the prime land where the football club is. That's what's tend to happen in the UK. But I don't know enough about what's happened specifically with Bordeaux to really comment any further. Because I think the first I knew about it was when it popped up. I think it was Wednesday night, Mitch, when you sent us the little link and saying, "Dear me, look what's happened here." All you can think of is it was only what season was it? 2012, 2013 when we played them in the UEFA Cup.
It's only it's less than 7 years ago they topped the division in the Champions League.
Yeah, that's right. They topped their group, didn't they? Yeah, and it just goes to show, when things go wrong, they go really, really wrong, and it goes very quickly.
Bordeaux needs to be a present warning for us all about lots of things happening in the game at the moment. The journey to this started COVID,
right?
And the losses they made during COVID, and at that time they were owned by a company called King Street, which were an American hedge fund fronted by an individual called Joseph DeGrosser, if that's a name that means something to you.
Yeah.
And when the fans chased them out because they'd got into financial bother and had been relegated because of that, they scrambled back up, got promoted, and then they were bought by the current owner, Lopez, who's the owner of Boa Vista. Now, he again is one of the models you should not follow for multi-club ownership. This is the third club he's taken under. The more recent one was Muscron in Belgium, I believe, which is the prescient warning about multi-club ownership. It doesn't always work, particularly if you've got somebody who's milking the clubs for everything you bloody well can. Lopez was also the president of Lotus F1 until they went mysteriously bust as well. It's a sad and sorry tale about what's going on. It comes out of the French league losing the broadcasting rights, which BN had, and then when the Ligue 1 wanted more and the owners of PSG weren't prepared to pay it, what did they do? They let it go to an open market bid, and it fell so low that BN picked it up half that what they were paying the previous season. And now this year, as having picked up the rights again in combination with DAZN, they want every Ligue 1 club to wear Visit Qatar on their training shirts before every televised game. And quite rightly, the clubs have turned around and said, stuff you. But this is now the point where that French football is. COVID hit them badly. Losing the broadcasting rights when the movie star deal, basically they lost so much money, it's untrue. There's a lot of French clubs are having to plug holes financially. And the only way that they can do it is sell their talent. Hence why the young 18-year-old centre-back's gone to Man United. Now, I think that's why we at the moment are being a little cagey on the transfer front. Our new director of football has been absolutely embedded in French football for years. He'll know where all the talent is in French football. And he'll also know the clubs that are desperate to fill a hole. And we're at a point where we could turn around and say, yeah, we'll help you fill that hole. But not at that price. And that wouldn't surprise me to see us hoover up a degree of French talent from a number of clubs. And I'm not just talking small clubs. I'm talking Monaco and Marseille. And why are Marseille signing Mason Greenwood? Are they that desperate? The answer is yes. Yes. That's how desperate they are. And that's the state of French football at the moment. It's the can that we've been saying to everybody that was being kicked down the road during COVID when deals were being done here, there, and everywhere else. The French haven't been able to do that, but mainly because, ironically, of PSG's owners and the lack of sponsorship from the television. And so I think this is where we are at the moment, and how it could even affect us in some ways, ironically, and it's a horrible Grim Reaper position to take. That we could benefit from sweeping up a lot of French talent. Is that talent at Bordeaux to get? No, because they've been relegated to Division 2. They're now about to be relegated out of the professional league, or that's what they've done now, is they've given up their professional status. Don't think there's much. But I think it's also worth mentioning at the minute that Bordeaux, who've gone under yesterday for 40 million euros, are still owed 9.1 million euros by Barcelona for the transfer of Malcolm in 2018.
Yeah, me. That's unbelievable. That.
And Barcelona trade away with their billions of debt.
Wow.
And the people of Bordeaux leave a glorious and historic club, a club older than Newcastle United.
Yeah.
Crazy that, really.
And this is where it's wrong, and this is why me and Steve get on our high horses about finance and football, and why we've gone on, and why PSR isn't fit for purpose unless you're going to talk about debt and how you intend to service that debt. Because when the man comes to call for his money, like has happened at Bordeaux, it's crazy, because their owner Lopez cannot prop them up anymore. He wanted to add them to his multi-club ownership, and he's now back down to one, Boa Vista in Portugal. And so it's an absolute farce what's going on, and I think and we should be paying heed to it. And I genuinely do believe that Paul Mitchell have one eye on League One at the minute and be thinking, well, I know where all the talent is. Let's see whose pips are squeaking the most. Because I think Man U have done the wrong thing in paying over the odds for that youngster. Because I think if they'd waited 2 weeks, they might have got him for cheaper.
Is that the Man United with 350 million pound to other football?
That would be the one, because debt obviously doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much debt you've got. It's one of the most frustrating things about the current ideas about what is and isn't sustainable in football. And I feel for the fans of Bordeaux, a glorious old club. You know,
isn't that the Manchester United have got a director who happens to be involved with a football club in France as well?
Yes, that one, yeah. You know, and I think the whole interaction in French football at the minute, all the clubs are going to be desperate for money by PSG, and PSG are absolutely complicit in making this happen, because their owner and his television company have absolutely undercut Ligue 1 2 or 3 years on the row, and I think it's a disgrace.
What's your thoughts, Joe, on the Bordeaux story? I mean, it sounds as if, well, it just sounds as if it's financial mismanagement, but just the rules.
Yeah, and that's it, Steve. I mean, I don't understand, you know, the intricacies of football finance, but who's lost out here? You've got you know, decent people, I guess, without a job now. So there's, you know, there's footballers looking for clubs, and you know, and what impact does it have on the town of Bordeaux, and you know, all of the kind of match day revenues and everything else at that football club. Never mind the fact that, as Mitch said, they're older than Newcastle United. And imagine just waking up tomorrow and our football club wasn't here anymore. That's catastrophic, and it shouldn't be happening. We talked for years and years and years, didn't we, about right and proper owners, tests, and what does it mean? These cowboys, these charlatans, these people who will tell you they've got all the money in the world and actually gotten out when you're actually looking, you know, down the city, you know, are coming in, taking over football clubs, and then at the drop of a hat, they're allowed to just go, do you know what, this isn't for me anymore. Doesn't matter about the consequences. Doesn't matter about
and do it on multiple occasions.
Absolutely.
Somebody described this week the fit and proper persons tests in football as being a revolving door with a tiny little drawbridge at the end of it. And I think that you couldn't describe it any better.
Yeah, I can. I can make an absolute hash of Newcastle tomorrow and then buy Man City on Monday. You know what I mean? What's going on? But fundamentally, yet again, this is football. This is the game we were brought up with, the game we love. It's a religion to people. It's, it means more than most things to a lot of us. And yet, some cowboy can just take it all away from you. It's a disgrace. But as long as these rules exist, as long as organisations like the television company that you mentioned there, Mitch, keep calling the shots, money talks. The little fella's just going to have to swivel. And ultimately, it's one way to get you in Super League, isn't it? You just make sure that you knack every other club, and then there's only 10 left, and they'll get what they want anyway. So I don't know. It's really sad for the people and the supporters of Bordeaux.
It is. It is awful to hear, awful to see. I've just took a link in the chat for the latest auction, guys. Got three days left. We've got some wonderful signed stuff, including quite a few signed programs. If you want to bid, start at tenner. Get yourself on there now. The link will disappear once the show finishes. So please jump in and make a bid or two. And I want to thank everybody for tuning into the Blake 7 podcast that was started just for fun, really. Something I've wanted to do for quite a while, and the fact that I've got a few people who are interested in doing it with us is even better. But we've got some good viewing figures on that this week, so thank you for tuning into that. As I say, we'll be reviewing episodes on there, so we're going to do one tomorrow, pre-record one tomorrow. That should be out this week. And a big thanks for supporting the lads at Talk of the Tune, Rob and Sid. Weren't sure how they were going to do with that podcast, but they really started. Well, they've established themselves as part of the team now, because they had a great time last weekend. But they've their show hit 2,000 views for the first time this week. So that's a massive well done to them for the hard work and effort that they put in researching and reviewing the albums. Big thanks to them as well. And it's great to have so many great people on here. We've changed over the years, different shows, etc. But got a good team, and got one or two things up our sleeve coming up over the course of the next couple of months. And those of you who are asking, when is the end of season due being put up? You'll be able to watch part 1 and part 2, because it was quite a long night. Part 1 and part 2 will go up on the 12th and the 13th of August. You'll be able to watch them on simultaneous nights. Okay, we will finish the show with Elliot. I've been stealing snooker equipment for years, says Elliot. Now it's time to take a rest.
Oh.
Good stuff. Big shout out to Paul Tweedy, who's in the Twitter chat. He's just said, can you just say hello to everybody? So there you go, mate. And he's complimenting on me t-shirt, which is very nice of you, mate. Yeah, I went to see Bruce Springsteen for the 4th time last night. In 12 months, and he was brilliant as always at Wembley. So thanks for that, Paul.
See Paul on Saturday night, Steve. It was good
to
see Paul.
Yeah, it was good to see him. Good to bump into him. So thanks, Paul. Thanks for your support. Thanks everybody for the support. Those of you who are watching on Twitter, over 550 of you now, please jump onto YouTube, search NUFC Matters, hit the subscribe button. It is free. We do 7 shows a week. I'm back 6 o'clock tomorrow night. With those were the days with George, and then the professionals are back on Sunday. So keep an eye out for that. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Cheers, everyone.
Good night, everybody.